Hey, friends, let's be honest about something. Grief doesn't stay home. It doesn't politely wait until after work hours. It doesn't care about PTO or your PTO policy. And it absolutely does not clock out. Grief shows up in meetings. It's showing up in missed deadlines and details, in silence and irritability, in decisions that take twice as long as they used to. And the reality is, most leaders, they don't recognize it. Welcome into this leadership sandbox. I'm Tammy J. Bond. Today in the sandbox, I'm going to share with you a little personal story. And I want to talk to you about two kinds of grief. I want to go to a personal moment in time for me because it's something I still walk through. I've walked through grief in two very different ways, and they show up in very different ways. The first was, well, the tragic death of my mom. There was a sudden, shattering, life-altering moment that happened 6 years ago that I still walk through in my mind and experience, um, especially a day like today. Why I chose today to record this episode, well, I guess it was serendipitous because it's the anniversary of her sudden and tragic passing. It changed me, and grief can hit like an earthquake like that day. And it changes how you think, how you sleep, how you focus, how you show up in your life. It did for me. And I'm not alone in that. But then there's the second grief that is quieter and heavier in a different way. For me, that's been the ongoing grief and challenge of raising a child with mental illness. Severe challenges we've experienced. And that grief comes in waves, but also in tragedy, ongoing because of behaviors and choices and things. It doesn't come with casseroles and sympathy cards, right? I guess some would say, could be chronic, relentless, the constant reminder of what is our reality. And it's full of the grief of what we hoped would be easier with certain decisions and therapies and all of those things, or with my mom, the things that would make it easier in the painting that I do or the baking that I do that reminds me of her. But I got to remember that grief, while maybe one was an event and the other has been a long season, both have changed my capacity. And I honor that on days like today or days when it pops up for me. I create space in my calendar because the truth is, and I believe that leaders need to hear this, grief doesn't always look like tears. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like exhaustion. Sometimes it looks like extreme control. Sometimes it looks like forgetfulness. And that's not that your team around you or the individual around you is meaning to do that. It's the expression of the grief that they're going through, whatever that season is for them. So let's talk a little bit about what grief looks like at work and why I feel this is important. As I remembered, I've created space for me to navigate the feelings of what I've experienced. And sometimes I haven't had that ability to because of the world or the life or the job or the clients that have needed me. I've still needed to figure out how to show up. And in your workplace, you've got people trying to figure that out as well. But here, I want to go through some of the ways that grief might show up and where leaders get it wrong. Because grief rarely announces itself at work. It doesn't walk through the door and say, grief is here, right? With neon sign shining over it. It shows up as slow thinking and decision fatigue. It can show up as forgetfulness and missed details and shorter patience and irritability. And it can show up as withdrawal in meetings. It can show up as perfectionism. It also can show up as micromanaging because there's a fear of losing control. Being present in person, but yet not fully functional, maybe not as they used to be. And it's not about a motivation problem, and it's not about a commitment issue. It's really about a capacity issue. And when leaders treat capacity issues like character flaws, they don't just lose performance, they lose trust. And there's some easy moves that you can actually make to help. It's really about getting educated first, right? And naming the reality without making it weird. Because you don't need to step in as therapy and HR doesn't need to get involved. You actually can be coach in that moment and ask and make a statement of, I know that you're carrying a lot right now. I'm here to talk about it. And I'd like to talk about how we work through that while you're in it. In that moment, you're opening yourself up and it creates safety for the person to explore what's possible and to know that they're just seen. And many people are going to be like, I'm good. I got this. Great. Let's check in. That's where those check-ins from you becomes very important, even if it's just 5 minutes. What do you need today? What's the biggest rock you're trying to move? What supports do you need? And this isn't an ongoing thing. And I share that because I don't believe that we hold people, I guess, to the strength that they have within them and remind them of who they are and how strong they really are. But oftentimes, when people have the supports around them to just be in the moment of their grief and their challenge, and that they are feeling seen in that moment, they're able to start to heal and feel that you've created a safe space that they can move through it. You want to help them to build capacity. You want to move into that place of building capacity and build a plan for that, not giving them some sympathy speech. So asking these questions will help. What's the hardest thing right now? Is it focus? Is it decisions? Is it energy? Is it people? Let them sit with that and give you the answer. What can we narrow or pause for the next few weeks for you? Set it time specific so they know that they're moving towards something time specific. You're not saying in that time you need to get over your loss or get over what's grieving you, the life change, the altering change. No, we're not asking that, but we are asking and setting the expectation that they do have the capacity. They can build the capacity to move through it. And then ask them how they want to have a check in. How do you want me to check in with you? How do you want me to check in with this? And you can even offer, I would like to have a 10-minute check-in weekly with you. If you need more, we'll do more. You want to remind them that HR is really about the human side of the business, and that means they do have resources for you from a grief perspective, from therapy options. So remind them of that and send them to that direction as well, because that's leadership. It's not hand-holding. It's creating that path forward with them. And then you want to move to step number 3, or your next move, which is keep the standard and adjust the path. Let's say that clearly. The standard stays. The strategy with this individual changes for a moment in time. Because grief doesn't mean that there's no accountability to your workflows. It means clearer priorities and fewer moving parts. What I can tell you from my experiences is that in times and seasons where we have been in the most challenges in our home because of the challenges that we faced with our daughter, those challenges altered the way my husband was able to show up at work, and he didn't talk about it. He didn't share what was going on for him, but all the moving parts, he was able to manage them, but it altered his ability to be present in conversations a lot of times at home. He's holding things together at work, and then he would come home, and then things were a firestorm in our house because of those challenges. It, having the clear priorities of what we were moving toward and removing the moving parts. Like, we pulled back from volunteering. We pulled back from being involved in community groups where we were leading or where we were really involved with efforts in our church and small groups and things like that. We pulled back from those extracurricular items because it was too many moving parts to manage and juggle, and because we never really knew what we were coming home to at the end of the day when our daughter was at home. And it really shifted for us a lot of our own capacity. But it didn't mean that we weren't accountable to the responsibilities that we had. We just had to come up with some different strategies. So here's a real simple 7, I guess, steps, 7 things that I want you to think about, because I want you to really bring this to life for you. You may be experiencing it. You may have someone in your workplace that's experienced grief. Grief does not have a timeline. Grief doesn't have a clock. It's not your HR gave 4 days a week off or 4 days off to grieve the loss of someone, or someone who might be struggling with a child with various disabilities, and their home life is it's such unrest or upheaval that sometimes coming to work, there's just that place of sitting in the safety of your office or your cubicle to just breathe because of the pressures that are now off in those 8 hours. That is a huge gift. But here's where I think you can really make a difference, just for you as a leader, but also for those other managers or other team members around you, to start talking about grief existing in the workforce, whether we acknowledge it or not. That's claiming the reality. And then it's owning your impact. Your response becomes the emotional temperature for everyone else. And then you want to map out that system of what the leave is, the workload is, the coverage, the norms, all of those expectations. Map it out so that the person has the clarity of what's expected. Don't assume that they are able to track all of it. You want to begin to move the behavior. So the check-ins, the clarity, the flexibility with structure, that's on you to move your behavior into where their needs might be. So you're anchoring the standard of the humanity of this is how we show up and this is how we coexist. And then I want you to start normalizing what accountability in this moment in time looks like. That might be fewer priorities, but they're clearly measured, right? There's a clear accountability plan. That's why you're asking for the check-ins. And then I want you to deploy and defend. Protect people from being punished for being human and feeling into what grieves them. Because here's what you sit with, folks. And I want you to just sit with this week as you think it through, because leadership comes up in these moments. It's how you show up that matters. Grief isn't a performance issue first. It's a capacity issue, and capacity is a leadership responsibility. And if you only know how to lead people on their best days, friend, you don't know how to lead people at all. And it's not about enabling bad behavior. It's about increasing the capacity so they can feel safe exhibiting the moments of grief, sadness, whatever it is in the workplace, because grief doesn't stay home. It shows up at work too. And it's our opportunity to be a gift in those moments, to be real human in those moments and seek to understand, so that in the workplace, there's safety, there's comfort, even in the sadness. Thanks for joining me in the sandbox today. I know this is a little bit of a different episode, and I felt compelled to share it because it's something that I've noticed over the years we don't speak to. And I hear that a lot when I'm on platforms and I bring up something about grief, or I bring up something about trauma in the workplace or trauma at home and how it transfers to the workplace. Grief that happened in my personal life, but how it transfers to the work that I do publicly. We don't talk about it enough. It's like we sweep it under the rug and we're supposed to just get over it. And in the sandbox, we don't sweep things under the proverbial rug. We don't bury them deeper in the sand. We dig them up, we expose them, we talk about them, and we create a strategy around them, because that's what healthy leadership looks like in the sandbox. Thanks for joining me today. Make sure you hit subscribe, like, share this episode with someone that maybe could benefit from talking a little bit about the one workplace problem that no one trains for, and that's grief. I'll see you next week, back in the sandbox, for a much more inspiring episode, I'm sure. Make it a great day, and God bless you.